What's up, guys? We are back and we are talking about Space Station Gaming making the right move. At least that's what I think, and that's what this title will probably be. And this is no shade on Arsenal. I just think for a team like Space Station, it might be a good time to try and improve where they can. Now, did they improve with their options of Justin and Aris? Who knows? Who knows? I see Aris is one of those where maybe it's more unknown from the outside perspective and more known by the pro players. Perfectly fine. We'll see how that goes. But Justin feels like a lot of people are very, very high on him in terms of pro players. So we'll see if a new team around him will bring back the Justin of old, the Season 8 World Champion Justin. So we'll see what Space Station does there. But the reason why I want to bring up, like, I think it's the right move is we've talked about this a lot before. I was surprised how late that this move happened because I just figured they were definitely going to make a move for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like everyone in NA is making moves, and usually when other teams make moves, if you don't make a move, you start falling a little bit behind. Rocket League, it just feels like that's the way of things, where if you're not making roster moves, you slowly will fall behind over time. Now, maybe Space Station could have been different because, you know, they just kind of formed in spring and all that stuff. It's possible. But I think because of all the other moves, in order for them to improve, I think it's a good idea. Now, like everyone's like, well, they were the number one team in NA in spring and all that stuff. And I'm like, yes and no, right? Sure, technically on points, they were the number one seed in North America in spring. But when you look at it as an overall, you look at their record in spring, went 3-2, 3-2, and 4-2 in their tournaments. And they usually were in the upper bracket for a while, and then as soon as they went to the lower bracket, they would drop out rather quickly. So that's why their records are like not that much better than a 500 team. Versus top 5 teams, they did all right. They were 1-2, then 2-0, then 3-2. Now they did take down Gen G a few times, which is always a plus. They took down FaZe, I believe, at least once, maybe twice. But FaZe technically was not a top 5 team at that point, so I didn't count those in those records. So it's a pretty solid showing. It's definitely a above average showing, and it shows that they are a top 5 major team. But to call them number one because of that is maybe not seeing the whole picture, right? On top of that, when they went to Spring Major, they went 1-2. They only beat Power, so that wasn't a good result there. World Championship, though, was a good result for them. That is absolutely sure. They went 3-1 in the wild card. They took down Team Secret, who made it out. They were a top 8 team. They took down KCP, who was an awful team, so you don't have to worry about that. And they took down Moist, another top 8 team. So they had a pretty good run throughout that. The team they lost to, I believe, was G2, who obviously went 3-0. So all in all, wild card was great. They go to the World Championship proper, the main event. They take down FaZe, which at that time FaZe was blowing up, so maybe not the best of wins, but hey, you play who's in front of you. And they took down Rule 1, which was huge to make a top 8 finish. They lost to Team Liquid there, but an overall solid showing for them. We had 3 NA teams in that top 8 that fell down. So I think like after everything, that World Championship was definitely on the plus side, but they were probably, what, 3rd to 4th best team in North America by the end of the year. You have to put them behind Gen G, of course. You have to put them behind Complexity, like I would say at least. Even though Complexity had a worse Worlds, I still think you would put them behind them because I think a lot of people had high hopes for Complexity and they had a few heartbreakers. And then G2 is one of those where, like, you can make an argument 3rd or 4th. I would put them 4th and then put G2 3rd, especially because we saw G2 take them down when it mattered most. But, you know, whatever. 3rd, 4th best in North America. And if you're 3rd or 4th best in North America and everyone's making moves around you, it might be a good idea to make a move. And again, this is no slight on Arsenal, right? We'll see how that all plays out. But it just feels like they should make a move because everyone else is making moves. And I think it was a good call. We'll see how it works out. Like, one of the things that I always hear from Space Station throughout is that scrims never go well for them. They always have terrible scrims. They lose more often than not. And I feel like eventually that would catch up to you. And maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but because like maybe scrims don't matter that much, but I feel like as a team, if you're coming in and you're losing scrims all the time and then you just like find a way to get those wins on the main stage, yes, that's good. That's great, actually. But you worry about the long-term effects of that, right? Because you worry about like, will other teams eventually just take us down in one of those big main event spots, and then we're going to slowly fall out of place. And that includes, obviously, regionals, right? If they're online and all that stuff, then the big-time moments of, like, an Arsenal, of, like, that LAN hype might not matter as much. Maybe it does online. I guess we'll find out next season for Space Station. Because, obviously, Arsenal, the intangibles are through the roof with him, right? The in-game leader, your hype man, and he obviously is a very talented Rocket League player. So to replace him, not only do you have to find talent that's on par with Arsenal, you lose out on those intangibles. And those intangibles you can't get with any other player, right? Because you're going to bring in a third that is not going to be an in-game leader. It's all about LJ and Hoxer now. They have to find a way to turn into that. So it's going to be interesting for the coach, Sad Jr., to see how this all will fit. It's a weird puzzle. It's a weird puzzle for them, but I do think it's the right move to try and improve the squad. Obviously, there's 2 super teams in NA. Then there's complexity, which we're going to talk about in a second, that they really have to worry about. And obviously, there's going to be other teams for them. And we know M80's coming out with AJ and Jorius, who's going to be a solid team. Whoever they get as their third, they'll be major contenders as well. So I do believe, at first, I thought it was a little odd that Space Station was the only team not to make a move. Now the move is just coming a little bit later. Now, is that a mistake? Should they have thought about this a little bit sooner and maybe they had a chance at some other players? Doubtful, I guess, because in North America, it feels like everyone's moving kind of slow, right? We had our 2 super teams. They've kind of formed, G2 and Gen G. And it was not likely that those players like Atomic and First Killer would have went to those squads, right? So I think for Space Station, even though it's a little delayed, it shouldn't really affect them that much. The other side, Complexity, they're making moves. Looking like Dorito is very likely to come over at this point to join CRR yet again and Raise Bowl. And this move is puzzling, I would say. I feel like Complexity, when they booted AJG, I think we're expecting to find a better third, is my guess. Now, when Europeans come over to NA, they usually do rather well, so we'll see how that all plays out. But Doritos here obviously have a lot of history. They were on Guild together, where in spring of RLCS 22, they did rather well. They had one where they didn't qualify for one of the regionals, then a 9th, then a top 6 as well. Then obviously Gamers 8, they made it all the way to the grand finals there, and, you know, Gamers 8 is not 3v3, but still, they made it to the grand finals, which was huge. And that was with a Devo that I think like was on his way out as well, right? So not bad there. And then they teamed before that with White Demons. And they've teamed even before that. But with White Demons, at least, RLCS X in the spring, they kind of popped off as well. They got a top 8, a top 4. Then they got 9th in the spring major as well. So not too bad. They were definitely improving, and obviously it's always CRR and Dorito. They obviously love playing together, right? They think they can work well together. Now with the Raise Bowl, we'll see how this all pans out. Like, obviously, those are good results that we just talked about for CRR and Dorito when you're an emergent player trying to break into the top. Now they're at the top, right? We see a Complexity team that I think most people would have had third best behind FaZe and Gen G, and then FaZe was imploding, so probably second best in North America. And to make this roster move, you would expect them to maybe try and upgrade a little bit more. I think AJG got the short end here. He was definitely third best on that team. Like, I think there's no doubt about that. Like, AJG was one of those players, when he had a good series, then Complexity was unbeatable. But that's what made him third best. A lot of times he was like, he was there, but he definitely wasn't like up to par with his two teammates, but when he did play up to that level, they were unbeatable. So if they could have found someone that could match a CRR and a raise bull, then maybe they could challenge the top two in NA. Right now with Dorito, that seems unlikely in my opinion. It seems like they will fall short of that. I'm not sure if it's necessarily a downgrade from AJG. It could be a downgrade. I feel like it's like a side grade, maybe a slight downgrade, maybe. But it's hard to tell, right? Because usually when Europeans come over to NA, they fare rather well. So we'll see how it all pans out. But for complexity, it feels like they lost out in this roster trade window if they are going to pick up a Dorito. But we'll see. Maybe they will prove us all wrong. And we'll see what happens there. Space Station as well. We'll see what they get. Their third is still up in the air. Justin, I'm very interested in because it feels like a lot of teams have interest in him. So maybe he's on the grind. Maybe he's going to look completely different with two new teammates. We'll have to see. But I don't mind the Space Station move, even though I think Arsenal is a great player. I'm actually kind of excited to see what Arsenal does next, because I think he will definitely try and compete, and I think he's got plenty of options out there. So we'll see if he can make another run at a North American major spot. So we'll see how that all pans out. But NA slowly making these roster moves, right? They're taking their time more than Europe, because we had a Europe power rankings thing, because we basically know most of the top rosters. North America, it's uncertain. We have basically two rosters in NA. Everyone else is like questionable thirds. Maybe complexity now with Dorito very likely coming over is like that third roster, but it feels like most people are like still kind of in that tryout phase, and we'll have to see who their thirds are. So a lot up in the air. We'll have to wait and see how North American goes, and then we can try and power rank them whenever we get more rosters done. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time, probably through Thanksgiving. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about the Space Station move. Let me know what you think about the complexity move as well. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.